But who were the Asiatic Brethren, or the Frater Sincerus, as they was also called? Well, they were basically a splinter group from the Golden Rosenkreuz, which, with their former organization, they blended Hermetic and kabbalistic notions into coherent Rosicrucian philosophy. But as the Golden Rosenkreuz seemed to lay a greater emphasis on Hermeticism and alchemy, the Asiatic Brethren, on the other hand, laid more emphasis on Kabbalah and magic. One other great difference between these two organizations was that the Golden Rosenkreuz, involved with mainstream German Freemasonry, was restricted to Christians. The Asiatic Brethren, on the other hand, permitted both Christians and Jews as members. Amongst these Jewish members figures followers of the Sabbatean Kabbalist Jacob Frank, such as Ephraim Hirschfeld and Thomas von Schönfeld, whose real name was Moses Dobruschka. It should also be noted that Moses Dobruschka was the cousin of Jacob Frank. So on one hand, we have the clear association between the Frankish Sabbatean Kabbalah and L'Aurore-Nachante through the Asiatic Brethren, and on the other hand, we have a link between L'Aurore-Nachante and the Golden Dawn through the mysterious cipher manuscripts. I believe the most plausible intermediary between Frankfurt and Maine in 1807 and London in 1888 to be none other than Kenneth Mackenzie, who received his Rosicrucian esoteric transmission by the hand of Count Apponyi in 1850. It is more or less an established fact that the cipher manuscript was written in Mackenzie's own handwriting. Our order has evidence in its archives which shows that many concepts and practices within the Golden Dawn have a strikingly Sabbatean resemblance, inherited from the German Rosicrucians of the 18th century. As, for example, some Golden Dawn wand designs, which according to Mr. Jean-Pascal Rougier, was inspired by a Golden Rosenkreuz document which, interestingly enough, and I quote, contains strong Polish Jewish Kabbalistic influences, and especially those coming from the school of Sabbatai Sevi. Now, as we have established the fact that there actually exists an esoteric transmission between the Sabbatean Kabbalah and the Golden Dawn, we should ask ourselves in which ways the school of thought has survived to this day through the Golden Dawn. First and foremost, I would like to say this can be discerned by the non-dogmatic approach towards spirituality, as Sabbatean Kabbalah is very antinomian in its nature and vehemently revolts against religion, especially amongst the teachings of Jacob Frank, who regarded organized religion as the Clifut, the shells who entrapped God. So it was the task of the pious Jewish Kabbalists, according to Frank, to convert to Christianity, which he referred to as the sons of Esau or the Edomite kings, and therewith free the divine sparks from its imprisonment. This act of apostasy in the eyes of the Jewish population was in fact inspired by the so-called holy apostasy of Sabbatai Sevi, who converted to Islam at sword point in 1666, forced by the Turkish Sultan Mehmed IV, comparing it to the descent into the mouth of Samael, or Satan. Later, Sabbatai Sevi created a following amongst the Turks called the Donme, which is Turkish for convert. Jacob Frank was in fact initiated into this Sabbatean Kabbalah by the Turkish Donme before he entered his missionary life in Poland. So what we see here in Sabbatism is the urge to unite all Abrahamic religion into a coherent whole. As a matter of fact, the later Frankist movement tried to institute a new form of universalistic, messianic religion and considered Christianity as an intermediate stage towards it, with Jacob Frank himself as the next avatar of Messiah, the reincarnation of Sabbatai Sevi. These universalistic tendencies could later be seen in the Asiatic Brethren, who baptized its Jewish members with Christian names and gave its Christian brethren Hebrew-sounding names. This perennial tendency within the Sabbatean Frankist Kabbalah has survived with the Golden Dawn, which blends many different Western religions and pantheons into a coherent whole. Furthermore, the Asiatic Brethren also celebrated both Christian and Jewish holidays, and therefore incited the Jewish followers to break Hebrew law, as for example eating pork with milk. This was clearly an Antinomian practice that surely was inherited into the teachings from the teachings of Jacob Frank through the people like Moses Dobruschka. Obviously, Frank's Kabbalah blends very well with Hermetic Rosicrucian tradition because of his strong ties with Christianity. As a matter of fact, Jacob Frank and his followers adored the Holy Mother, Virgin Mary, the Virgin of Częstochowa, the Black Madonna of Poland, which Frank is associated with Shekinah. The cult of Black Madonna is a form of worship of the divine feminine, and we know that Jacob Frank was a devout worshipper of the divine feminine, which is easily discernible in one of his sayings. In a dream in Częstochowa, I saw the goddess who came to me appearing as a beautiful virgin. All of this makes a very interesting connection to that diagram of Garden of Eden before the fall, taken from the Grade of Practicus. And the angelic female figure surmounting this diagram. This image expresses the divine feminine, which the Kabbalah refer to as Ayima Elohim, which may be translated as the Mother of God. She directly corresponds to the woman of the Apocalypse for the 12th chapter of the Book of Revelation. The Frankists, following through their Antinomian mission, also engaged in sexual practices. This can of course be understood in the light of the cult of the Black Virgin and the Sabbatean doctrine of sexual polarity, which I will return into a moment. Not sharing sexuality, but on the contrary, openly encouraging it. They also embraced other similar sins, not as sinners, but as saints, so to speak, to free the sin, the spark of God from the cliphotic shell, through indulgence, or perhaps integration, as some of us will say today. But we have to remember that Sabbatean Kabbalah follows the teachings of Isaac Luria, where matter is suspended in a falling state mixed up with the cliphotic forces, the shells or husks from the first and aborted creation, which gives matter its characteristics as this is known today. The goal is restoration, the tikkun ha'ulam, which means that matter is submitted to an alchemical process of separation of the gross, the cliphut, from the fine, and the creation of a new Eden and a new Adam, or Christ. Luria, as well as Sabbatean and Frankist Kabbalah, is anonymous in its message that the spark of God, which is entrapped within the shells, the cliphut, must become liberated, redeemed, for this restoration to occur. But the truly unique development and clear antinomian aspect of Sabbatean Kabbalah is the concept of a divine ambivalence on the level of Ein Sof. Ein Sof, according to Nathan of Gaza, consists of two kinds of light, the thoughtful and the thoughtless. The former is in favor of creation, the latter tries to hinder it and conserve the original state of blissful nothingness. This latter light, or thoughtless, is thoughtless because it lacks the image necessary for creation. The Tzimtzum, or retraction, which created cosmos out of chaos, occur within the thoughtful light, which through its creative intention was able to animate light toward the first monad, or Kether. But as a result of all this, the thoughtless light also was dragged down in the process of creation, that because of its limited nature tried to prevent it. This created the dialectics between the positive creative force and the destructive force. These two conflicting divine intentions of the macrocosm, which is also reflected in the microcosm, manifest as the two pillars of Kabbalah, which is in the Golden Dawn, are painted as black and white to further emphasize the polarity and association with the two kinds of light.